All right, it should be recording. Did everybody see a red button pop up? And I see that that's being transcribed on the side as well. Anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Oregon Meat Processing Infrastructure and Capacity Building Grant webinar. This is for the 2023 grant program for meat processors. And again, if you have any questions at all, just record them in the chat and we'll get back and address those. But today, some of the things we're going to look at are the overall grant opportunity, definitely look at the priorities of the grant, the pro tips for application, and interactive Q&A session for sure. But the one thing I wanted to point out is this is not designed to reiterate what's in the application and the guidelines, and I encourage everybody to download those, go through those. This is additional insights and connecting from things that I've had questions on and people have brought up, and how do I do this? And so this is added value, and I encourage everybody to spend time in the guideline and the application documents. So the grant funding for this is state dollars. Legislature approved that. There is $8.2 million available directly to meat processors in Oregon. One of the unique things to the Oregon funds, they are a disbursement rather than a reimbursement. And so that means that the dollars are given up front rather than for turning in expenses. So up to 75% of, if you're awarded a grant funds, up to 75% are awarded up front. What else do I got on that screen? The maximum was approved through administrative rule process to be $750,000 per application or applicant. And it goes through the biennium, which ends in June of 25. I think several places in here I threw in the deadline being January 16 at 5 o'clock key date. And this is one of the interesting pages here. It's eligibility as it's written in rule, and it has distinct language in it, and I just cut and paste. I'll go through a little bit more, but it is for people that have existing processors. They may be custom exempt, and they are going to state meat inspection program. The grant funds are available to new processors who are going to be inspected through the state meat inspection program, and for USDA establishments that are expanding. All of them are for expanding the processing of Oregon animals. And what that looks like is a handy dandy page like this. Basically, you can see where you're at on the left, whether you're new and existing. At the end of the grant period, you're near or you are under the state meat inspection program, and you're definitely in Oregon. You're in good standing. You don't have back taxes or have a warrant for your arrest. And your goal is to increase processing, which can be slaughter, cut and wrap, or value added. Now I've got an echo. It's for animals from Oregon and processors in Oregon, but that's the eligibility chart. I get questions on that if what the case, but that is a go or no go for whether you're eligible for the grant. Eligible processing for the types of meat are listed there: cattle, sheep, swine, goats, reindeer, elk, deer, antelope, water buffalo, bison, buffalo, yak, or camelids. And rabbits and poultry are not on the list. So many people have the question, so what is the program of state meat inspection? It is equal to the federal USDA system. It is a program in Oregon for producers here in Oregon for meat that intends to stay in the state. It's under a system of continuous inspection, and there's the criteria there on the screen that involve sanitation programs, food safety, and properly labeled. It's very similar to USDA. I think at the end, I will try to put in the Q&A for the meat inspection program. I don't know if Paul, are you on? Paul Sherman is heading that up and is the contact for that, and he'll be available to answer questions here at the end, I believe. So here's the key point. This is the priority of the grant. In the guidelines, there's kind of a list of things that are priority. But at the end of the day, is these grant funds are intended to grow the processing capacity for Oregon animals where it's needed in Oregon. Key points, if you look at that, is that what is the number of producers served? What is the number of Oregon animals slaughtered? Pounds processed, pounds into retail. It's intended to increase all of those numbers with the grant dollars. And again, these are kind of measurable. I've gone back. We had the last grant program, we went back and calculated these figures from the grant program and what was included, what was increased through the grant funds. So here is a key point that may be a little different than some grant programs. And it's how a project is defined and recorded on the grant application. If you've gone through the application, you picked up onto this, and it takes a little bit of an aha moment, but it is essentially your entire project. The entire project that you're describing may be grant funds that are eligible, that you're requesting for grant funds. It may be things you've already done. I had one question was, well, I'm putting in a cooler. I've already poured the concrete, but I want to put the cooler as a grant request. And in that case, you would list the building and concrete work as an expense as part of the project, but not check it as being eligible for grant funding. And you may have planned, your project may be so big that it exceeds the $750,000. In that case, go ahead and you're going to list the entire project, and the questions asked within the application are about the entire project. In the end, this gives you a better entire picture of what your project is, and your coordination and input into it. So the pro tip on it is make sure it's the whole scope of the product and you capture the other expenses, because that is how we're capturing your contribution to the project as well as the grant funds. I think this will come a little bit clearer as we go through it. But one of the things here is to understand the metrics. If you look at the top there, there's a 3. That is Roman numeral is matched up with the application section. And so if I'm talking about something there with the pro tip, it is lined up with the application. In this case, we're looking at the metrics that you put in, and there's 2 sides of it. There is your current status and the projected status if the grant is awarded and the project is complete. So in that case, there's the left side, you would put in the average over the last 12 months. You would look for the 12 months after what you project the 12 months after the project complete would be, and that gives us a current status and a projected increase with the grant funds and the project being completed. It also includes your current operation status, the types of processing you use. So if you're going to increase the types of processing, your services, you're going from custom exempt to state meat inspection, you would also check that there. So This ends up being important. This is directly tied to the metrics and the success of the grant program. You will see later on how it ties back at how you're supporting this information with your grant request. Okay, this is the one I guess they get more questions about, and it's a short section. It's only allows for 250 words. And this is probably, if you're going to spend time getting started on your grant application, this is where you spend your time in the project summary. And the reason I say that, there's a review team and folks within the ODA, a few of which may see the entire 50 or 100 applications, and this section may be all that they see if they're not specifically assigned an application. So this is an important section. Don't The detail people will want to follow this exactly and include all the elements, but this is just a guideline of some ideas that go into a executive summary or a project summary. And I wanted to give you as much assistance and warning as I can here that this ends up being a key section of your application. So the next section, section 5, is about your barriers and your needs. The key tip on the barrier and needs is about being specific about the problem. It's about identifying the problem and often putting metrics to it. I was trying to think of ways to distinguish this between, lack of processing in the area versus, I get contacted by 15 ranchers and I can't fit their animals in. I've got to, there's a processing problem. So identify the problems and the barriers. Be as specific as you can be in this section. It helps you out later on because you're providing solutions to these as well. Oh, there's some examples there. The one thing on here, sometimes you're in your head or in your project, you're already looking at what expenses are and building a expense sheet and activities list. Sometimes you can start backwards from that and start with the piece of equipment or the activity you're doing and go, okay, what solution did that bring? And that will tell you right here what your issue may be. You can work backwards and that can help you there. So let me see if I didn't got the problem. Uh, so in this section here, there a lot of things can be put into this section. This is the outcome section, and essentially people go, "Oh my, what is all the outcomes going to be?" And it's the solutions you implemented along with the benefits of it. And if you just think of it that way, you'll look, oh, we put this in, it provided the solution for this, and this is what we gained from it. And you can group things together. The one part of this here um, that is a good place to put it in is sometimes the solution is you partnered up with a neighboring processor, or they were able to put something in, you weren't, and you partnered up for them. This is a good place to include those in as part of the solution. You have partners and collaborators that you have your grant, and this is what you're doing. And this key element, we partnered with such so and so, but you would include that in your solutions in this area. Get a lot of questions on this area as well, about your strategies and resources. So the intent of this is very much about your um, business and financial long-term success. So we want to look at, a lot of folks have a really good handle on meat processing, and they need to implement further strategies for their business and their financial stability. This is the section where you will include those things. It's essentially a resume of your business. How is it going to be in business? How is it going to be financially stable? And we're not asking for proprietary information or your business plan. And so this is the opportunity here to let us know, let the reviewers know I've taken these steps for the financial and business stability around this project. And I'm sure there'll be questions on this. We will come back to that. So the expense detail sheet and the work plan that follows, and this is where I get lots and lots of questions, and people get stuck because they may or may not have the right final detail. So in the case of a new metal roof over a pin, they may have an estimate from a builder, an estimate of a time frame, but not have the delivery or the final. That is a fairly accurate information if you've got an estimate and you put what you think the shipping will be. What the ones that stand out is and lead to further questions where it's a fixed pin and there's a round number, no contractors listed in the work plan, and then we have to ask, you ask further, it says, well, fixed pin has put a new metal roof on it. And so that is, when you look at the attention to detail, it's, let us know it's not just a rough estimate, that you've done a little bit of research. And that's key to this area on uh, both the work plan, because the time frame, and if you list somebody responsible that's a contractor, or you've got an estimate, or a key one that came out last time, even if you are doing the work yourself, list in who's responsible for the work in-house for getting that done in the work plan section. So in the end of that section, there's two number totals there, and they are total funds requested. And this is on the application. There's a checkbox that says is an expense that I wish to be funded by the grant, and it's checkboxed on the left. If you have, like the concrete pad I mentioned earlier that is done and you put it down, that would not be the one that's added up in the grant funded column of the total funds requested. There's another line there in section 9 that asks for total project funds required. This is a total of all the expenses of the project. So in the end, we have a total expense of the entire project, and we also have the grant funds that you requested up to $750,000. The difference between those two is actually shows your contribution to the grant. So there is not a requirement for matching funds or in-kind funds on this. It becomes apparent when you look at the whole project and you see what you're doing and what is being asked for in the grant funds. So sometimes it's kind of nice to look at the end of the project, what happens here with the applications or go to a review team, multiple eyes, and they have a sheet that's a review sheet. It's on the website underneath the application if you want to look at it, and there's prompts for them to review every application. It's worth looking at these to see kind of the lens that they're looking at applications with. You probably won't be able to answer all of them yes, or you don't want to conform your whole application around it, but this is a good perspective. There's things about purpose and impact, the project budget, and the work plan. I'll leave that just for a second so you can, and again, this sheet is on the the grant page, the ODA website under the Meet Grant web page, which I'll have up at the end. So the last one that they look at is about the long-term viability of the project. One of the things here that was actually added on that we actually don't have an exact place to fit it in is labor, as most processor knows, is a real issue and can be, and it helps to have a line or two in there that how if you are increasing capacity, is it going to increase the need for employees? If so, have you thought of how to attain, attract, and keep them? And that's how are you addressing your labor needs becomes something that people in industry really look at of, okay, this makes sense now because they're freeing up employees over here to increase processing over here, or they have somebody in mind, but that is the often get questions. There is not a requirement for letters of support. Um, they there's not a requirement, and they are included as part of your 16-page total application length. So you want to be strategic about it. But two things you can do that really add value to your application. The areas where you said there was barriers and needs, if you have letters of support in the industry and those people that would benefit from it, go ahead and include them, make them quick, page long. The other one is, which we mentioned earlier, if you are collaborating with a neighbor or another processor, or you have a solution that fits in and there's different roles and responsibilities that make your system work, having that letter of support or of collaboration with that person to say, yeah, this is going to be my role in this, we're working together on it, that has value to your application as well. And this is my one of my favorite pet peeves here, but I'm going to point out the file name here. If the quickest way for your application to get lost is to leave the default file name on the file when you upload it per the instructions in the application, you do want your name, you do want the program, which is Meet Grant, and your name on the file name that gets submitted. And if you have additional documents that you're uploading, just put in add one, add two. That those instructions are also right in the application and in the guidelines. But the other thing, if you to not do is do not email applications to me or to somebody in the program. A lot of times if people have technical difficulties, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the system to do it, and that is fine. If you need to handwrite it, and you call me and we'll set up a specific path for that, whether it's hand delivery or mailing to a specific address that we can check it off when it's coming in, but they will make arrangements for that as well. So we made it all the way to Q&A, and I didn't include all the information from the guidelines. So there's a lot of information there that will answer your questions. But I'm want to hear from you guys, and we'll back the slides up and have a discussion and find out what questions you have, and maybe we'll put them into a Q&A document as well. I've got the question was, when awarded, when do the grant funds become available? We plan to complete the selection in March, and then there is a grant agreement that needs to be signed. So we're looking at April, May for the grant funds to be distributed. Here. Is new construction eligible? New construction is eligible. The one piece that is not eligible is the land it's sitting on. And so new buildings, infrastructure, electrical, anything in there is eligible, but the property is not eligible for the grant funds. Now, the question is, what sort of attachments are you expecting? So the biggest one is what we have seen for attachments are letters of support and quotes on the bigger items, particularly when it was showing, or in the case of, a multi-step process where there was a piece of equipment and electrical and the estimate that the two quotes were attached for it. We are not expecting every quote for every expense you put in there, nor are we expecting for a complete financial business plan. Does that answer your question? Will plants that slaughter be prioritized over further processing? We talked about that last time. There was only so much that could funds available, and it was prioritized for slaughtering. We realized with the implementation of the last grant that if you increase processing in one area, it creates a bottleneck in another. Ultimately, it's going to be looked how much overall meat processing is made available to Oregon by the grant. So no, there is no priority over one area over another. Yeah, all of the attachments account for as part of the 16 pages. Did I miss any other questions? I hear.
Gary, you did. There was one. Will there be a confirmation email to notify applicants the application was received?
Yes. So we try to within 3 days. Good question. When they get into, they are uploaded. We are notified. We have a process to check those in, and we will notify you preferably within a working week or 3 days. And very simple. We have received your application. There's also kind of a front side review if it's ahead of the deadline, just make sure everything came through and everything's named correctly and the check boxes are in there, where we may get back to you. We received your application and your attachments didn't come through that you referenced, those type of things, but within a week. I say that hesitantly because when it gets really close to the deadline, we end up with half of them in a 1 week period. So. Were there other questions?
Gary, this is Keith, just clarifying. So if we're doing a new build, these funds can be used for engineering permits, those types of things as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Gary, are there any other exceptions besides the purchase of the land on this grant?
So you want to go to the guideline documents. They're spelled out there, line as we can. Marketing is not qualified. Overhead expenses that for general running and supplies are not qualified expenses. I would encourage you to look at the list in the guideline document.
Hi, this is Brandy, and I had this in the chat. I think the question one for us is a domestic well and pump for a water facility. Is that is I guess the one that we really question for the budget eligibility?
Yeah, and that's the multi-use items become really an interesting one there, because if Yeah, we'd have to look at that to see if it's for processing water, it's key to your processing. You know, there's most likely it would be eligible. If it is a new piece of property and you need a well for a house and a building and processing, they become a little harder to justify. We leave that up in the open, and it's something we would look at individually. But the other part of that is waste treatment and plumbing to do that is qualified, and so water infrastructure for processing would also be eligible.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. That does help. And I guess the other one, and I think, these are just the gray area on our end, is, you know, if you had a full holding facility for animals, you know, feeder bunks, troughs, that kind of thing, those being eligible, as they are key to processing is what I'm thinking. Yes, but I don't know what, you know, how the reviewers see that.
Understood that is part of processing. The distinction is it on a feedlot elsewhere, or is it at holding pens at the processing facility?
Gary, we have someone from South Umpqua that has their hand up.
Okay, yeah.
Hi, is Flower Hill Institute still a resource for this grant, or is that just specific to some of the past grants?
Flower Hill Institute is a partner for USDA and their grant program. They are not tied in directly with the State of Oregon grant program. Does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you.
Gary, it's Keith. How are you guys feeling with new inspectors, or where you guys come along with your training and having actual inspectors to be able to keep up with increased demand through this grant process?
We've had the right growth rate as well. 50 new plants all at once, but would be a problem. But what we're seeing is steady growth at the same time they're adding on inspectors and building up the qualifications. Can't say we're not. I don't know if Paul is on. He can answer that question better than I can. But right now we've seen growth at a good rate, and they're building it up at the same time in the inspection program.
Yeah, Gary, and I'm on, and I can expand on that a little further. Exactly what Gary said. You know, if we had 10 new firms come all at once, that's going to be difficult. You know, location is always difficult, but we are cross-training staff. You know, we have retail inspectors throughout the state, and some of those are being cross-trained. We have our brand inspectors, and we have one brand inspector that also works with the state meat program, and a couple more in the works. So, yeah, whether it's USDA or ODA, staffing is always the biggest challenge. And you guys know, just in the private sector, getting people that want to work and want to do the job, sometimes difficult. We're not above those challenges, but as long as it's slow and steady, I think we're okay.
Yeah. Was that Paul Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to ask him a question.
Sure.
For rural meat processing facilities, is there any way for the owner or somebody in the facility, instead of fighting to get somebody to come out to a rural area to be the inspector, is there any education going on so that somebody on site can be a meat inspector, or is that needs to stay separate?
No. Well, that is a very good question. That is a very good question. We don't want to have a conflict of interest. So if you have ties to the business, typically you can't then inspect the same business. You would
Right.
have to be an ODA employee under the state meat program to be able to do that inspection work. The same with the USDA. So we don't want to have those conflicts, but we realize in some very small communities, maybe you're not directly related, but most people are related you know, or the more chance of someone being a relative is going to happen. We
Okay.
would look at those as a case-by-case basis of what is the relationship, you know, can they actually do the inspection oversight in a fair, impartial manner, and if so, then ODA would have to make that decision.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, if there was somebody like in the community that might be retired and needs, like, if I wasn't going to process as state meat inspection full-time and I was going to do custom exempt part-time as well, somebody in the community that might need a part-time job that can't travel all the way across Oregon to do that job, is there a way for me to possibly just email you and get in contact with you about that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
We are looking at one of the differences that we can do that like USDA typically doesn't is part-time inspectors. You know, hopefully someone with a meat background are of course the easiest to train. And yeah, we would love to have a list of potential full-time and part-time people that might be interested in doing it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Gary, there's one more question that just came up in the chat about eligible projects.
Is that new construction or only improvements on existing structures? That question, or is there another? Oh, there it is. No, boy, I'm having trouble here scrolling down.
From Lucia.
Oh, there we go. So staff labor for increased processing would not be considered part of the overall project inspection if it's for doing the processing, but the cost of them to do the work of the construction or preparation on there would be an expense, could be an eligible expense of listing in the project. The wages to perform processing to the increased processing would not. And if purchases are made prior to the grant award, they could still be listed as part of the overall project's expenses. Yes. We've very much learned that people can't put their life and their business on hold to wait for a grant process. And so you aren't reimbursed for expenses that you have prior, but if you're already working on the project, you can show the contribution you've had to the project prior to the grant funds being for eligible projects. So eligible projects must be USDA. Oh, that's a good question. So what we're seeing here, the question is, can you go straight from a new facility to USDA? I'll let Paul put in here, but for the purposes of the grant, you want to check that box going to ODA. You want to get there first, and then you can go to USDA. There is no set specific timeline that has to be. And so for a new or an existing custom one, your first route within the grant is state meat inspection. Paul, did I answer that one correctly? You did, but a very good distinction is there is no time limit, meaning if your goal is to get to USDA, I will help get you there quickly. You know, we want to fulfill the way the grant is written, but even people that don't receive grant money, I will still help get you there. You know, we don't want to compete with USDA. They have a lot more resources and people than we do, and it opens up that market to be able to sell, you know, across the nation. It's going to be the same program, so we can help transition you very quickly if that really is what fits your business model. And believe me, it will not hurt our feelings. Yeah. Hey, Paul, the next question is, what are the first steps to take towards the Oregon Meat Inspection Program? I'm going to throw your name out there. First step is to give Paul an email or a call. And Paul, if you can find the question and answer about the state meat inspection program and put that into the chat, that is really a great document for how to get started and who to contact about the state meat inspection program.
Yes, I won't be able to do that right now because I'm pulled over on the side of the road. I kind of was running late and got stuck in traffic. But to walk you through in a nutshell, yes, reach out to me, email, phone call. And really what I do is I try to meet with as many as I can in person, but if we can't in person, we'll do it over Teams. But I like to see your facility, do a walkthrough, kind of talk through your process, see if there's anything that jumps out that would need improvement or not, or if it's just a matter of determining what type of products you do and what flows the best. I have a very simple application. There's no fee associated with it. The application is just to get you in my system under the state meat inspection. We get you an assigned establishment number, and then I start helping you develop your programs. The only thing we really ask of you training wise is whoever is going to write your HACCP plans, your food safety plans, has to go through a HACCP certification course, or you can hire an outside consultant to write those that's been HACCP certified. The training's available online. I've been working with Northwest Meat Processors to do in-person trainings, and we're going to set up another class in May, probably Corvallis, Albany area, somewhere here in the Valley, because in-person learning is way better in my opinion. But you'll get the HACCP training course. I give you example HACCP plans based on the different product categories. I'll give you an example SSOP and kind of show you how to modify that to fit your process. I will hold your hand from start to finish until the day you start operating. Different from USDA, they're going to send you a bunch of stuff and let us know when you're ready. You know, our benefit is we can work directly with you. And so step one, call Paul. Step two, I'll get everything to you and we'll get the ball rolling. And you know, the process, if you're really gung-ho, we can get through the process start to finish in probably a month. Typically, you know, it's a 90-day process because all of you have other jobs that take most of your time, and you do what you can in your spare time. That's okay. We'll work at your pace, but I'll keep prodding you along and say, okay, this is our next step. Let's get that done. And then this is our next one. Let's get that done. So you'll find it's not as intimidating and scary as you think it is.
Gary, I wasn't able to upload the FAQ document, but I did put the link in for the ODA state meat inspection page. So that's got all those resources on it for folks looking for state meat inspection information.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Carla. All right. I don't want to miss anybody's questions. Any more questions?
Gary, forgive me, I can't get chat to come in on my phone here, but
I love talking with you, so that's fine.
so USDA specifically exempt composting. Is that considered part of processing, or is that disposal and on the other end of it?
Composting is an eligible expense as long as it's on site of the processor.
Okay.
It's not a standalone composting facility offsite. It is connected specific with a processor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And question number 3, I guess, would be, if you recall, I've been working on my land deal since, I don't know, last May now. And I think it's actually might come to fruition about a week after this thing closes. But if everything goes sideways for me, and I happen to be awarded this, is there a way to return and give somebody else the opportunity if it just all goes sideways and I can't procure this land?
Absolutely. There is arrangements within the grant agreement that says exactly that. If either side cannot fulfill the duties of the grant, it can be sent back, and that would be I think it's be distributed. So.
Well, yeah, because I would hate to take that opportunity away from somebody else if, yeah, it goes sideways. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
So you said on-site with the composting. What if the land for composting is still associated with the business, but it is not on-site?
That is eligible.
Eligible. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. No, we have had that case. I just was thinking about that. We've had that case. The processor's there, but you generally across the street or at the where the feedlot is, where they can use both the feedstock from the feedlot and the processing plant in the same location. It is eligible. I've got a question popped up here. Is there anything we should keep in mind for reporting on this grant? I think you're assuming reporting for taxes. It is considered revenue. And you would have to report on the taxes on it.
Real quick, which is a good question on reporting. How about for grant reporting? What would be required of that?
That is, so within that, there is a spreadsheet of as expenses. Right up front, there are the records to have the funds dispersed. And then within a year, there is a report that is a spreadsheet of completed activities. You should keep a picture of the equipment or what has been completed and receipts. But there's an ongoing spreadsheet for the grant that is sent in at least annually, but definitely is verified before the last disbursement of the funds is sent out. In practical, the last grant round, I think I visited every processor. And I'm still occasionally there would be equipment that's backlog. I get a picture and a receipt that says, hey, this is in place. I'll add it to the spreadsheet and get that to you. But it finally came in. So that is verification that it's in place, verification of receipt, put into a spreadsheet and provided to us.
Thank you.
Good question. Are there any more questions before we go? I appreciate everybody being here. I am going to end the recording.
Oh, Gary?
Yeah.
Gary, I'm sorry. This is Curtis Martin, and I'm sorry. I was just on another video conference before. I was late getting on here, so I totally apologize to you. But so the connection between Oregon Beef Council and what you guys are doing has been pretty deep, and it's really appreciated all the different ways. I guess what I was just going to throw out, and I brought this up to the board the other day when we had our meeting there in Corvallis. Do you see any further need that Oregon Beef Council could assist in the expansion of what we're trying to get done here? And maybe that's a question for another time or another venue, but I thought I told the board that I'd bring it forward, and so here, that's what it is. And maybe it's a question that can't be answered right now.
Yeah, you caught me by surprise from that, but today is Lisa Sharpelow Hansen, our director's first day.
Yes.
Sending that out and setting up a discussion with her would be a fabulous opportunity for both of you.
Great. Well, I'll see her tomorrow. So
I can't answer that right now. So
I hear you, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. And I think people that like Keith and other folks that have been engaged may, if you have thoughts along those lines of what could further this great effort, and I'm very pleased with where we're at and how enthused you are, Gary. I really appreciated talking to you the other day there at Corvallis. So, you bet.
That was a good opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Well, everybody, thank you for your time. Feel free to call me, email me anytime. I'll keep working this through and looking through for your applications. And if I don't see you, have a happy holiday. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Bye-bye.